A man walks out of her life, months go by, maybe even years, and somehow she still thinks about him. Not every day, not with regret, but something about him lingers. His presence, his energy, his decisions. It left a mark. And it's not because he was perfect, it's because he moved differently. Welcome back to Man of Substance. Most women won't admit this out loud, but there are men they never forget. Not because they were the best looking or richest, but because those men made her feel something she didn't find again. These guys didn't try to impress her, beg for her time, or become her emotional servant. They simply carried themselves in a way that forced her to remember them, long after the messages stopped and the connection faded. What's wild is that the men who stick with women the longest often aren't the ones who try the hardest. They're the ones who understood how a woman's psychology actually works. They knew what leaves an imprint, and it's rarely the sweet gestures or over-the-top compliments. It's the way they held the frame, the way they held back, the way they respected themselves even when emotions got involved. This video isn't about playing games. It's about mastering the traits that make you unforgettable to a woman, whether things work out or not. If you're tired of being the guy she forgets the second she meets someone new, this will shift the way you show up from this point on. Let's break it down. 1. He walked away without explaining. One of the most unforgettable moves a man can make is leaving without turning it into a speech. No begging, no breakdowns, no long emotional message. Just walking away, clean, firm, and quiet. That silence speaks louder than anything you could ever say. And the reason it hits so hard is simple. Most men can't do it. The average guy, when things start falling apart, or when a woman pulls away, feels the need to explain himself. He tries to fix, justify, or reason with her. He texts long paragraphs, hoping she'll see his side. He overcommunicates, not because she asked, but because he wants closure. But here's the thing. Closure is a luxury most men give to women, while robbing themselves of their dignity. When you leave without explaining, it leaves space. Emotional space. And in that space, she starts to feel something she didn't expect. Uncertainty. That's where you stick in her mind. Not because of what you said, but because of what you didn't. She starts wondering if you even cared, if you're over her, if you've replaced her. That curiosity, that emotional confusion, it keeps her locked in way longer than if you had poured your heart out trying to make her understand. There was this guy who was dating a woman who constantly played hot and cold. One day she wanted his time, the next she was distant. Most guys would have chased, tried to talk it out, asked what was wrong. But he didn't. After a few weeks of that back and forth, he just stopped showing up. No call, no dramatic exit. He simply disappeared. She texted, called, even asked mutual friends if he was okay. But by the time she realized she lost his attention, it was already too late. And the crazy part? She couldn't stop thinking about him. Not because of what he did while they were together, but because of how he left. No explanation gave her nothing to push back on. No argument to win. Just silence. And it haunted her. When a man walks away without explaining, it signals power. It shows that he respects himself enough to not justify his absence. It's not about being cold. It's about knowing that the moment someone starts treating you like you're optional, you stop showing up. That kind of exit burns into a woman's memory, because most guys break down when things fall apart. But the man who stays composed, moves on, and keeps his peace, he becomes the one she remembers. 2. He made her earn his attention. Most men hand out their attention like it costs nothing. They offer compliments before a woman even says a word. They double text. They drop everything to reply within seconds. And they do it all without asking themselves one simple question. Has she earned any of this? When you give your attention away too freely, you train her to believe it has no value. It becomes expected, ordinary, easy. And once something feels easy, it stops feeling exciting. That's not because women are ungrateful. It's because they're human. People naturally value what they work for. A man who makes a woman earn his attention isn't playing games. He just has standards. He doesn't jump into conversation the second she blinks at him. He doesn't overinvest in someone who hasn't shown genuine interest. He moves like a man who understands that his presence is earned, not owed. This doesn't mean acting cold or dismissive. It's not about pretending to be above anyone. It's about being intentional. If she doesn't show effort, you don't overextend. If she gives low energy, you don't try to compensate with more. You meet her where she is, and if she doesn't bring much, you don't offer much in return. That kind of restraint creates contrast, and contrast creates attraction. She starts to feel like your attention means something, because you don't throw it around carelessly. She begins to notice when you engage, and when you don't. That awareness creates emotional weight, and that weight sticks. You've probably seen it happen. The guys who don't bend over backwards often get treated with more respect. Not because they're rude, but because they don't place a woman above themselves. They have boundaries. They don't beg for attention. They observe and respond. That's rare, and women notice. If you're the kind of man who always initiates, always gives first, always keeps the conversation going, you're doing too much. Not because effort is bad, but because effort that isn't matched ends up looking needy. And women don't remember the men who were too available. They remember the ones who made them step up. So ask yourself, does she deserve this much of your energy? Has she earned your interest? Or are you just hoping she'll like you back if you give her enough attention? When you shift into that mindset, everything changes. You stop chasing. You start choosing. And she feels the difference. Because the man who makes her earn it, he's the one she doesn't forget. 3. He stayed calm when she tested him. Every man who's dealt with women for long enough knows this moment. She says something passive-aggressive, pulls away for no reason, or throws a little emotional curveball just to see how you'll respond. It's not always conscious, and it's not always malicious, but it happens. And how you react in that moment says more about you than anything you've said before. The mistake most guys make is taking it personally. They get emotional, try to defend themselves, or rush to fix the situation. But when you do that, you show her that her emotional swings control you, that you're easily thrown off center, and whether she admits it or not, that changes how she sees you. A woman will remember the man who didn't flinch under pressure, who didn't match her mood just because the energy in the room shifted, who stayed calm, grounded, and unshaken, even when she threw little tests his way. That kind of emotional control isn't common. It's respected. You don't need to argue, explain, or overreact when something feels off. You don't need to chase down her attention every time she pulls back for a day. What you need is stillness, presence, a strong internal compass that doesn't get pulled around by someone else's mood. She wants to know that you can handle her, not just when she's sweet, but when she's uncertain, stressed, or emotional. And no, that doesn't mean letting her walk all over you. It means you don't take her emotional shifts as a personal attack. You observe, you let her be, and you maintain control over your own state. That kind of energy communicates strength without needing to say a word. It shows you're not seeking approval or needing constant reassurance. You can be there, fully present, without being reactive. And when a woman senses that, something shifts. You stop being just another guy she can push around emotionally. You become a man she respects. The truth is, most of what women say when testing you isn't even about you. It's about her wanting to feel secure, wanting to know that if she pushes a little, you won't fall apart. If she disagrees with you, you won't fold. If she goes cold, you won't panic. When you hold that frame and stay calm under pressure, it's not about proving anything. It's about showing that nothing she does can take you out of alignment with yourself. That kind of presence sticks in a woman's memory. Not because you reacted perfectly, but because you didn't react at all. 4. He never chased after pulling back. When a man pulls back and then goes right back to chasing, it cancels everything. That short break in attention loses all its impact the moment he doubles back with just checking in texts, likes on her posts, or attempts to restart the conversation she left hanging. And she notices it. Every time. What separates the unforgettable men from the rest is what they do after they step back. Do they hold that distance? Do they remain composed? Or do they eventually cave and try to win her over again? Most guys don't realize it, but women are paying attention to that. She's watching to see if your silence has weight, or if it's just temporary, until your emotions pull you back in. Chasing after pulling back tells her you were never really detached, that you weren't walking away out of self-respect. You were just hoping she'd miss you enough to react. And when she doesn't, and you come crawling back, you confirm what she suspected. You were bluffing. On the other hand, when a man pulls away and actually stays away, it creates space. Not out of pettiness, but out of principle. Because you're not here to prove yourself after you've been dismissed. You're not chasing someone who stopped showing up. You're not chasing anyone at all. That kind of restraint speaks volumes. It shows her you meant what your actions communicated, that you won't re-enter a space where you're not valued, that your time isn't on standby, waiting to be appreciated again. And that's what makes you unforgettable. Not just the silence itself, but the discipline to stay silent when everything inside you wants to reach out. There's a level of power in keeping that distance. It's not emotional coldness, it's maturity. You recognize that chasing isn't noble when it's not being reciprocated. It's not romantic when it's not being received. And you're not going to let your emotions override your self-respect. It doesn't mean you hate her. It doesn't mean you don't care. It just means you've chosen not to give energy to a dynamic that isn't mutual. And whether she admits it or not, that hits harder than anything you could have said in a long paragraph or phone call. If she circles back, it's because she noticed the absence. If she doesn't, then you made space for someone who will. What matters most is this. Don't undo your power by chasing after you've already taken a step back, because the man who doesn't break his silence becomes the one she can't ignore. 5. He spoke the truth without sugarcoating. A man who speaks plainly, without twisting his words to please her, leaves an impression most never recover from. Not because he was rude, not because he was aggressive, but because he respected both himself and her enough to be honest, even when it wasn't convenient. A lot of men fall into the trap of saying what they think a woman wants to hear. They soften their opinions, dodge uncomfortable topics, and avoid giving real feedback because they don't want to rock the boat. But all that does is create a version of themselves that isn't real. And the moment she sees through it, and she always does, the trust is gone. Truth, when delivered with calm and confidence, creates clarity. It draws a line. It shows you're not trying to win points or earn approval. You're just being real. That's rare. And when something is rare, it sticks. There was a guy I knew who was seeing a woman that constantly pushed boundaries. She'd flake on plans, disrespect his time, and try to play it off like it was no big deal. Most men in his position would either ignore it or pretend it didn't bother them just to keep her around. But he didn't. One day, after another excuse, he looked her in the eye and said, "Listen, if you're not serious about this, that's fine. But I'm not going to keep entertaining someone who plays games. You're either in or I'm out. No yelling, no name calling, just the truth." She didn't respond right away, but she remembered it. Because he didn't chase, didn't beg, he just spoke like a man who didn't fear the outcome. And eventually, she came back with a different energy. More respectful, more intentional. That's the impact of truth. It doesn't always create an immediate result, but it plants something in her mind she won't forget. A moment where you chose honesty over comfort. Telling the truth doesn't mean being brutal. It means being clear. If something bothers you, you speak on it. If you don't like how she's acting, you address it. If you see a red flag, you don't ignore it to keep the peace. You speak like a man who values himself. Women remember that, because most men don't. They lie, hide, or soften everything to stay in her good graces. But when you speak up, not to fight, not to shame, but just to be real, she feels it. She may not like it in the moment, but she won't forget the man who said what he meant and didn't dress it up to sound sweeter. 6. He didn't react to her drama. When emotions run high and things start to get messy, most men get pulled in. They feel the need to fix, explain, defend, or argue. But the men women remember the longest are the ones who didn't take the bait. The ones who stayed calm when everything around them felt chaotic. Not every woman creates drama on purpose. Sometimes it's emotional overload. Sometimes it's insecurity. Sometimes it's just testing limits. But regardless of the reason, one thing always holds true. How you respond in those moments shapes how she sees you from that point on. The man who stays grounded in the face of drama shows that he's not emotionally controlled by her outbursts. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't get pulled into every mood shift. He lets her have her moment, but doesn't let it affect his sense of self. That's a powerful kind of presence. Most guys think if they don't react, they'll come off like they don't care. But it's the opposite. Staying calm doesn't mean you're numb. It means you're in control. It means you value peace over chaos, and that you're not going to let someone else's storm become your storm. Defend. She attacks. You argue. Suddenly the energy is all over the place, and nobody's leading. That's when things spiral. That's when attraction dies. But if you keep your cool, it sends a different message. You're not here to argue for your place. You're not reacting to attention-seeking behavior. You're showing that you don't engage with emotional noise, that you're present, but not available for games. And whether she realizes it or not, that moment sticks. Because she's used to men trying to overpower her emotionally or shrinking under pressure. But when you do neither, when you just breathe, pause, and remain steady, it disarms the situation completely. The men who don't react emotionally don't do it because they don't feel anything. They do it because they've learned not to reward chaos with energy. They've learned that a woman can express herself without pulling them out of their center. That kind of emotional discipline is rare and unforgettable. If you're the kind of man who gets triggered easily, start paying attention to the moments that steal your calm. That's where your growth is. That's where you develop the ability to be present without being reactive. That's where you separate yourself from every other man she's argued with, tested, or dismissed. Because in a world where most men break at the first sign of drama, the one who doesn't becomes the one she remembers. 7. He put his mission before her. There's something powerful about a man who's driven, not just by the idea of love or relationships, but by purpose. A man who knows where he's going, what he's building, and why it matters. That kind of focus is magnetic, and it's one of the biggest reasons a woman never forgets him. Now here's the part most men need to hear. Too many of you lose yourselves the second a woman shows interest. Your goals take a back seat. Your discipline slips. You make her the center of your world before she's even earned that spot. And in doing that, you kill the very attraction that brought her in to begin with. Women aren't drawn to men who orbit them. They're drawn to men who move with direction. The kind of guy who doesn't rearrange his life every time she calls. The one who's not always available because he's busy doing something that matters. Not playing games, just living with intention. Putting your mission first isn't about being selfish. It's about being solid. It's about having something in your life that gives you purpose, something that doesn't revolve around her. When a man lives like that, a woman respects him. She sees that he's not waiting around for her to validate him. He already has a foundation. She can join him, but he's not stopping to convince her. And here's the truth. If your mission falls apart the moment you meet someone, you didn't have one to begin with. You had hobbies, not purpose. You had plans, not commitment. It's time to look in the mirror and ask yourself, what have you been building that doesn't depend on a woman staying or leaving? Some of you have made women your entire reason to feel motivated. You only get serious about the gym when she's watching. You only grind when she's impressed. And the moment she pulls away, you collapse. That cycle has to stop. A woman may enjoy attention, but she respects vision. And when you're a man on a path, with or without her, it shows. She knows you won't compromise your future just to be liked today. She sees that you're not easily moved off course. That kind of consistency is rare. Putting your mission first doesn't mean neglecting your relationships. It means bringing a sense of direction into them. It means she sees what drives you. And she knows she's with a man who's going somewhere. So if you've been coasting, if you've been waiting for a relationship to give you meaning, it's time to stop. Find your lane. Get serious about something that challenges you, improves you, stretches you. Because that's what separates men who are remembered from men who are replaced. She'll never forget the man who was so focused on becoming something great, he didn't need her to complete him. He invited her to join him, but never needed her to lead him. The kind of man a woman never forgets isn't always the loudest, the richest, or the best looking. He's the one who held his ground. The one who knew who he was, even when emotions got messy. The one who didn't need her to feel valuable, but invited her into a life that already had meaning. If you look back at your own experiences and see yourself over-explaining, chasing, softening your truth, or putting her ahead of your purpose, you're not alone. Most men have done it. What matters now is whether you stay stuck in that pattern or choose to rise above it. Here's something worth thinking about. The more a man fears losing her, the faster she starts forgetting him. That fear shows in your actions. It shows in the way you overinvest, overreact, or over-explain. And once she feels that fear, the power dynamic shifts. She stops seeing you as a man to chase and starts seeing you as someone trying to win her back. Flip that script. Become the man who leads, not the one who follows her mood. Become the man she remembers not because you begged, but because you never had to. I want to hear your thoughts. What stood out to you? What have you experienced personally? Drop a comment below. I'll be down there reading and responding. Let's build this into something real. Thanks for watching. If this helped shift something in your mindset, stick around. We're just getting started.